having seen the best of among the Indian institutions and all. So, what do you think is the single biggest misconception students have about higher education in India today?
You would not find anybody jobless out of these institutions, but somehow they become so fixed on just one single goal of finding a good job that they are not pursuing higher education, and they are not doing things beyond what is required for a job, and they're not even enjoying life. It's all a rat race. In a rat race, at the end of the day, whether you win or lose, you end up being a rat.
But however, we still struggle with employability, right? Where exactly is the disconnect here?
I think the disconnect is between research and innovation. Research is you take up a problem, somebody funds you for solving the problem, right? And then you publish some papers, right? That's what research is. And research usually ends with, in India particularly, ends with the publication of a paper or with a patent. And 98% of research today stops with a patent or with a publication. It doesn't go beyond that. And innovation, on the other hand, is generating value for knowledge, generating value for research. Once somebody makes use of that knowledge, translates that into a product, kind of a solution to a real problem, then you are developing products, then you are improving processes, then you are creating wealth, and that will create the jobs. So this disconnect between research and innovation is the single, biggest factor why we are able to do well in research, but we are not able to create jobs, not able to create careers for our research.
When it comes to the private universities in India, right, they are not competing with IITs yet. So, what would it take for a private institution to truly challenge the IIT brand?
So I think these financial models need to be completely relooked at. In India, the public funded institutions are dependent on government up to 90%. 90% of revenues in an IIT come from a government source, either through sponsored grants or from grants and other things. Right? In private universities, the 90% of revenues come from the tuition fee. Both these are flawed models. Right? With both these models, you can never build a Berkeley in the public sector or a Stanford in the private sector. It will never happen. Right? I think the way to do that is by diversifying your financial resources. If you look at Stanford tuition fee contribution to their revenue is less than 20%. Less than 20% of Stanford revenues come from tuition fee because they have this endowment fund. They get huge overheads from government grants. That is what sustains excellence at a place like Stanford.
If you look at the society, people are fancied about dropping out from college and starting their own ventures and all. And that brings to my next question in terms of degree versus skill, right? So again, we hear this debate everywhere. But doesn't a degree from IIT or BIT still open more doors than any skill or certification?
It does open more doors. It also provides you the network. Right? The reason why you go to a university is not necessarily for the degree purpose. You also develop a social circle, a network, which will eventually help you in many different ways. I think that is what a university does today. And you want to go to a great place because everybody in the class will also do great things, and you are also part of them. So all those networks will help. Kind of. If you look at all the unicorn founders, they all have formed those groups out of their colleges.
So, folks, you have tuned into TGV and hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, the world's only quadrilingual podcast at this moment of recording. And we are trying to embark into multiple languages as we speak. And here we embark on transformative conversations for a better future. And we want to simplify and amplify your journey to success. I'm your host, Navin Samala, dedicated to making the world a better place by bringing you wisdom through valuable discussions with experts designed to simplify and amplify your success. And thank you so much for tuning in. So, folks, welcome back to yet another episode. It is not yet another episode, but the biggest milestone of the Guiding Voice podcast series. And we are honored to have Professor V. Ramgopal Rao, who is the Group Vice Chancellor of BITS Pilani, which comprises of BITS at Hyderabad, Pilani, Goa, Dubai, and Mumbai. And he's also the former Director of IIT Delhi from 2016 to 2021. He's a globally acclaimed nanoelectronics researcher with 500 plus research papers and 50 plus patents, out of which 20 of them were issued by the United States. And he's also co-founder of two deep tech startups named by NanoSniff and SoilSense. He's a fellow of IEEE, TWAS, INAE, INSA, IASC, and NASI. He's a recipient of the prestigious Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, Infosys Prize, and IEEE EDS Education Award. And Professor Rao has supervised 52 PhD students and is a national thought leader on educational reform, innovation, and also entrepreneurship. So, Professor Ramgopal sir, thank you so much for honoring our invite and being on the show. And it is truly, truly a delight to have you on the show. And how are you doing today?
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And I'm doing quite fine. I am in Pilani right now. So thank you.
Okay. Right. Thank you, sir. So, folks, today we are going to delve into an interesting conversation on the topic at hand, the IIT director who built startups and career lessons for the AI generation. But before we get started, here is an exciting twist as always. Let us tickle our guest's brain first. Sir, I'm going to kick off or trigger a first rapid fire round of random words. I'll mention a few words and request you to share whatever comes to your mind in response without thinking much. And if you're ready, let's get started.
Sure. Sure. Please.
Okay. My first word is curiosity,
Research,
invention,
deep tech,
future,
exciting,
universe,
mystery,
leadership,
empathy,
success.
success, happiness,
Wow. Artificial intelligence, AI,
transformative,
aliens,
scary,
career,
opportunities,
teacher.
mentor.
And last one is role model.
Yeah. Professors, for me, at least it was a professor for me. So,
Absolutely. So thank you so much, sir, for those amazing rapid fire responses. And there is one more rapid fire round towards the end of the episode. So stay tuned and thank you once again for being part of our journey and hearty welcome to the guiding voice. So we'll get started with the mainstream question, sir. You were born in a small village in Telangana and studied in Telugu medium and rose to the ranks of Director of IIT Delhi and now the Group VC of BITS Pilani, right? So, what kept you going when the doors seemed closed?
I always believed in making use of the best opportunity, any opportunity that came my way. In fact, I started very small. I studied in Telugu medium till 12th. I had no idea what IITs were. We did not even know JE exam or anything like that. So at that time, the only thing that was important for us from the lower middle class backgrounds and from a remote place in Telangana was get a government job. That was all what was on our mind. And at that time, a government job would be usually through by pursuing engineering. So I think pursuing engineering was to land a good government job kind of a thing. So there was nothing to think beyond. It was all just to get a decent job, because that was the only thing we knew in my previous, for example, five generations before. I mean, everybody was only in service and everybody had a government kind of a job. So the I think coming from that family, doing engineering was the first thing. So I joined a local college and I graduated. But then I did very well in my education. I was very hard, and then I went to IIT Bombay for my masters. That was my first exposure to IIT Bombay, and that changed my life. Once I, joined IIT Bombay, I could see what excellence was, and I could compare myself with people from all over the country, because my class had MTech Microelectronics at IIT Bombay is one of the finest kind of a groups in the country, even at that time, even now. And so I could compare myself with all the best people I had an opportunity to interact with, and that is what gave me the confidence. I realized that I am as good as anybody else, right? And for somebody coming from a Telugu medium background, without any major kind of financial sort of resources, and just to be gaining that confidence that I am good at what I do, I think was the turning point. And once I realized that I am as good as anybody else or better than many, right? I never looked back. And then I also realized there that I am good at research of all the things I did at IIT Bombay. I published as a master's student a paper in American Institute of Physics Journal of Applied Physics. Out of masters, publishing a paper in such a prestigious kind of a venue was not very easy. Was not very common there even at that time and even now. So I think that gave me a confidence that out of my own idea, I can publish a paper in a top journal in that area. And once that realization came in, I never looked back. I went to IIT Bombay to get a better job, right? But then once I discovered myself that I am good at research, and I never stopped after that. I went for PhD. I went for postdoctoral studies. I chose an academic position at IIT Bombay again, and I think so that self realization was very important for me, which happened at IIT Bombay.
Wow. That is amazing and very inspiring. Did you ever dreamt of becoming IIT director? Because coming from a small town, I mean, very rural background, people tend to be kind of scared of, okay, am I something eligible to pursue a degree out of IIT? That itself is a big dream, but you went on and became a IIT director, right? So did you ever dreamt of that?
It was not planned that way. I was, as a faculty member at IIT Bombay, I was doing very well. At the age of 38, I got my Bhatnagar Prize, which is a prize at that time given by the Prime Minister of India. Then, I got the Infosys Prize. I became a fellow of IEEE and all of them. So all recognitions were coming my way. I was one of the top faculty members from IIT Bombay. Anybody who visited IIT Bombay when I was there, I think they used to bring the visitors to my laboratory, showcase what we were doing and all of that. So I was doing very well as a faculty member, and I never had any plans to quit IIT Bombay. I wanted to retire there. In fact, I moved to a big bungalow there. There are very few bungalows, and I moved very early on because I became professor at a very young age. And then I thought I will retire there, so I furnished my house as if I'm going to spend my lifetime the next 25 years maybe there, and that's how I planned. But then, as destiny would have it, I was a little bit unhappy with the fact that things were all getting saturated. I wanted to, do things in a certain way, expand on the activities, and so my vision was pretty big, and which was not possible to accommodate in IIT Bombay, primarily because of space constraints, the culture, and all of that. So I wanted to, transform certain things. I wanted, to do certain things in a certain way. So I left IIT Bombay to become director of IIT Delhi, not out of any planning or anything, but out of frustration that why should institutions be like this? Why can't we do things differently? And why can't IITs do certain things which they are not currently doing, kind of a feeling. So that's what made me to take up the job at IIT Delhi. And if you look at all that we could do in my 6 years at IIT Delhi as the director, we did a lot of very interesting, very novel kind of things at IIT Delhi. And so the I think the results were all there. Any parameter that you see at IIT Delhi before I joined and after my 6 years, it was at least 2x to 4x kind of an increase in any parameter that you look at IIT Delhi. And so we worked very hard. We built a good team. We were able to transform an institute and then put it on the path to excellence. Of course, IIT Delhi has a lot of depth, a great institute, but the goal was to make everything a 2x better kind of a thing. So so that was what drove me to take up the job. Otherwise, I was pretty happy as a faculty member, and I never even aspired for any administrative positions. I became director also at a very early age, because in government system you have to do certain things. You have to have certain amount of experience. You need to be a professor for 10 years, to become a director. And since I became professor a bit early, I became director at the age of 50 years. And it gave me sufficient time, and I was young, so I was also very passionate about things and very energetic. And it was all a mission for me. I mean, it was never really the job, the perks, or the all of that was secondary to me. I mean, the way I used to interact, I was very simple. I would meet with anyone, I would go anywhere, because my sole motive for taking up that position is to bring up the institution and help people and transform an institute, not to for my personal benefit or anything. They were never the factors for me, to choose the director position. So I used to, I hardly ever used to even use the official car. I used to walk on the campuses, and so many things. I used to, in the evenings, I used to go to the student activity center, play with the students. I mean, directors would never do like that. But I never, that never got to my head. It was always it's a position which gave me, certain opportunities to, contribute to the country, contribute to the institute, and they were the primary driving factors. It was never about, showing off or anything like that.
Wonderful, sir. I think I love your humility. And talk to us about your guiding voice. Who is your guiding voice?
For me, my role model was at IIT Bombay. I came across one Professor J. Vasi, and he was, that selflessness which I learned from him. That to me was the calling I needed to have, right? How to be selfless, how to just give without expecting anything in return, right? I think that to me, when I came across some of these people, there were multiple people. I wrote about it on social media, the kind of people I came in contact with at IIT Bombay, and some of the finest human beings. They were, of course, very good as teachers, as researchers in their own subjects and all of that, but they were finest human beings, above anything else. And that touched my heart, and I wanted to be like them. And I think that influence was very, very strong on me. At least there were three people, three great professors I came across at IIT Bombay, and I imbibed, all the best qualities of all of them. And I think it was that to me was, in a way, the that gave me a purpose in life, and that is what I benchmarked myself. I think they were the people I benchmarked myself.
Superb, superb. And share your success mantra as in top three things that have contributed to your success so far.
I give my 100%, whatever I do, right? Otherwise, I don't take up any responsibility. But once I take it up, and you would never find me doing it half-heartedly, right? Small, big, doesn't matter. It could be, very small thing, or it could be something which can be very transformative. So that is one thing which I have always done. Don't take up things if you don't have time, but once you take it up, then give your best kind of a thing. So that's the first thing. And secondly, to me is, opportunities are opportunities, whether it is small or big, doesn't matter. And I have always utilized every opportunity that came my way. For example, I was talking to a student, and recently, and the student says, oh, I wanted to go here, but then I got this, and I'm not interested, and what can I do? I think, once you get into that sort of a mindset that I want X, but I got Y, therefore, I don't want to do anything. And then you get into depression, you get into desperation, you get disappointed, and that never was the case for me. I started very small. If it is, even if it is the Y not X that I wanted, but I would still give my best to that place that, eventually I will get to where I want to. I think, making use of every opportunity that comes your way is very important. I see students, uh, many people starting on a negative note, about everything, right, and not giving their best, and then they burn bridges in the process. You've gone somewhere, you haven't worked very well, you haven't shown enough interest, and everybody is unhappy with you. That makes you unhappy, and then you start feeling that something is not right with me, and then slowly that can become quite negative, and then can be a source of mental health issues and all of that. I think everybody gets enough opportunities, and it's all a matter of making use of those opportunities, which is very important. The third thing is hard work. I if you one thing which you notice with me is I work very hard. Even now, I'm only thinking of work. I do have a great family and a lot of support at home and all of that. But I am one of those absent-minded professors, because I pack so much in my day that there's hardly any time for anything else. But I do work very hard, and I think without that kind of a time that I put into learning, I'm constantly learning something, learning from people, or learning from somebody, or learning from online resources, learning from wherever it is possible. So I think some of these are, I think, the qualities that one needs to have, and also above all, right, the one that needs to cut across all of this is the honesty, right? Now, I think you need to be absolutely honest. People should be able to see through you, and knowingly, I have never done anything wrong, and it would not. I'm just incapable of doing anything wrong, anything which is not considered right, kind of a thing. So I think that absolute honesty, you can see in what I do, and you can feel that, and I think these are all very important qualities. And wherever I had gone to work, I can go back there again, because nobody was ever unhappy with me, and because I only tried to do my best, give my best. So I think some of these are very important for one to climb the ladder of whatever that one is aiming to. So
Yeah, got it, sir. And since you have already led IIT Delhi and now being the VC of BITS Pilani, so having seen the best of among the Indian institutions and all, so what do you think is the single biggest misconception students have about higher education in India today?
I think the biggest problem I see, whether it is IIT students or BIT students, is everybody wants a job, right? Everybody from day one, the branch you choose to what you do on the campuses is all to get a high paying kind of a job, and they are not even thinking beyond, and they are not thinking big, because finding a job is not going to be such a big problem. The kind of institutions you have come to, you will anyway get a job. You would not find anybody jobless out of these institutions, but somehow they become so fixed on just one single goal of finding a good job, that they are not pursuing higher education, and they are not doing things beyond what is required for a job, and they're not even enjoying life. It's all a rat race. In a rat race, at the end of the day, whether you win or lose, you end up being a rat. It is not going to make anybody become any better. I think this whole fixation of finding a job is what is hurting the country, what is hurting their own careers, and it's not helping anyone, because some of these are such bright people I have seen in our campuses. If only they had pursued something which they are passionate about, right, and pursued it all the way till the end, you become a global expert in that particular area. India would have got so many Nobel Prizes, and it would have got so many Fields medals, would have become so many more technology companies. All of that could have happened out of this country. But this fixation on finding a job, settling down very early, saturating at a very low level, being happy with whatever you are making. I think despite what they are endowed with, in terms of their capabilities, their mental, sort of abilities. I think they don't even get to use it completely, and that is very frustrating for me. And that, I think, is the greatest disservice that they can do to the nation. We're looking at some of the kind of people I have come across. I have taught for 18 years at IIT Bombay, and 7 years I have interacted closely with students at IIT Delhi. Now close to 3 years here. Some of them are the brightest of the lot. I mean, anyway, I've worked, taught in almost all continents now, and I can tell you some of these students are the brightest of the lot, and they not realizing their full potential is a loss for the country, loss for themselves, and loss for the world too, because so much they could have accomplished, with the capabilities that they have. And I hope some of this will change sooner or later.
Sure. And when it comes to research, I think India ranks third globally. But however, we still struggle with employability, right? Where exactly is the disconnect here?
I think the disconnect is between research and innovation. Research is, you take up a problem, somebody funds you for solving the problem, right? And then you publish some papers, right? That's what research is. And research usually ends with, in India particularly, ends with the publication of a paper, or with a patent. Many a time now people are also filing patents. While India is ranked third for publications, we are ranked sixth for patents now. So that way we are filing enough patents and doing all of that. But and 98% of research today stops with a patent or with a publication. It doesn't go beyond that. And innovation, on the other hand, is generating value for knowledge, generating value for research. So you have written these 100 papers now. If somebody asks what has come out of these 100 papers, if I say, but great papers, many people have cited, then you are a good researcher, right? But that doesn't create any jobs. Why will research create a job, if it has just remained as knowledge? Once somebody makes use of that knowledge, translates that into a product, kind of a solution to a real problem, then you are developing products, then you are improving processes, then you are creating wealth, and that will create the jobs. So this disconnect between research and innovation is the single, biggest factor why, we are able to do well in research, but we are not able to create jobs, not able to create careers for our researchers. And this is the biggest challenge right now. So how do we, what is an ideal scenario for a country like India, or for that matter any country in the world? So you have a problem, right? The problem could come from an industry, or from society, or from strategic agencies. It can, it can come from anywhere, right? Those problem becomes a project, right? That project, then you go to various agencies, get funding to execute that project. Out of that project, you generate a certain understanding, a certain knowledge, right? And that knowledge, goes into papers and publications. Now, out of those, that knowledge you create, you generate a prototype, right? You build out a solution to a problem. Now, those prototypes, either by working with industry or by working with a startup, or you could incubate your own startup. Now, those prototypes become products, right? Once these products go and get launched in the market, they generate profits, right? Now, those profits will go back to solving more problems. So, ideally, that circle needs to be complete. So, therefore, from problem to profits, right? That is the cycle. I call them the 7P framework, right? The 7P is problem. You then do a project, and then those projects become papers, right, or patents, and then those become prototypes, they become products, and they generate profits, and then the profits will go towards solving more problems. That's how you create wealth out of research. And unless you complete that circle, you will never be able to create jobs. You would have published some great papers and all of that, but you would never have created jobs, out of the research. And that India needs to do, that India is not doing, because less than 2% of our research goes beyond the publications and patents. And I think that is where I would like to see more deep technology startups. I would like to see more prototypes, more products, more technologies in the market. I think that's a cycle that we need to complete.
Also, sir, you say that emotional quotient matters as much as intelligence quotient, but our education system still rewards marks over mindset. So how can we fix that at grassroots level?
No, I think it's very important. Of course, EQ is important, but even AQ, the adaptability coefficient, is also very important. And very often I see that when students come to these campuses, right, and when they are presented with something which is a problem, many of them don't even know how to go about solving it or how to take care of their lives, when something happens which they were not expecting, right? I think it's also important for them to have that adaptability sort of a thing taken into account. And because the problem that exists right now is the social media influence is so strong on this generation, right? It's all an instant gratification, kind of an era where I post something and I get likes and I'm done, right? And that adrenaline rush that they want to have with everything that they do, is not going to be easy, right? And they want instant gratification, whereas science, technology, these are all very long term, right? They don't happen overnight, and so they don't have that kind of patience. And so this is becoming one major problem. Much of it is driven by this social media, sort of issues right now about instant gratification, and you know and having that adrenaline rush for with everything that you do. For example, when students go to a classroom, right, now they expect that every class has to be a Shah Rukh Khan's performance, that they will get entertained, right? Real world doesn't work like that. There are subjects which are boring, which are dull, which are dry, right? You cannot have every class to be, a great artist performance kind of a thing that I get entertained. And I think that whole Netflixification of, the education is also the classroom is not going to take us too far. I mean, I think these are the sort of things which students need to realize sooner or later, that hard science, deep science, requires patience, and you have to go through a long journey before you find it interesting, right? I think all of these things we need to teach them. So that calls for that emotional maturity, that requires that adaptability, kind of traits which they need to develop. And they have to be, looking at some of these careers as marathon, not as a sprint, right? I get 4 years of degree and then I just go and get into a job, and all of that is not going to be the way, they can go too far. And I think they need to be prepared for that long haul, and prepared for the rigor, right, that comes with doing those great things in which others have not done. I think all of that requires that kind of patience, and I hope people will develop that patience, sooner or later.
Right. And when it comes to the private universities in India, right, they are not competing with IITs yet. So, what would it take for a private institution to truly challenge the IIT brand?
The resources is a problem, and IITs have the funding from government of India, which is good. I would like IITs to receive at least 10x of what they are receiving, because we are still not funding enough our finest institutions. If you look at for example, Tsinghua University or Peking University in China, right? What China funds in for these two universities, right? The money these two universities receive in China, as a budget from the Chinese government, is equivalent to the entire Ministry of Education budget. Our entire ministry budget is equivalent to what two universities in China receive. That's the difference in scale between what China is doing, what India is doing. I think India needs to invest more, right? India needs to, our what as percentage of GDP, we are just at 0.6%, 0.7% kind of levels, and the US 10 times larger economy, right, spends 2.7% on research. China is spending, 5 times larger economy, spending over 2%. And I think India needs to invest more in science and technology. And that is one thing, for whatever reason it is, India is not doing, and which is hurting science big time. And when you talk about private universities, look at Stanford, Harvard. In US, all the top universities are mostly in the private sector, right? You take the case of Stanford, Harvard, MIT, all of them are private, right? So why is it that in US the private universities are able to do so well? The reason is the financial model these universities have, the philanthropy that goes into building these universities, that is missing in India. And I have, in fact, one of the articles I am currently writing is studying the tax laws in the US, studying the tax laws in India, because what is puzzling me is why is it that so much of philanthropy happens in the US? Why it doesn't happen as much in India? It has to do with the tax laws. In US now, if you are giving away your wealth, right? There are a lot of tax incentives for such people. Either you pay taxes to IRS there, or you invest it in things which are very close to your heart. Whereas in India, the tax laws do not favor any such philanthropy, and the limits are all very very small. And in the new tax regime, for example, there is no incentive to give away anything to anybody, right? And I think Indian tax laws need to change. And so I'm also now studying more about that. And even Harvard, right, which is supposed to be private university, Stanford, which is supposed to be private university. And if you look at recently when Trump, said I will cut funding for Harvard, right? His government doesn't fund universities as grants. There it's all research grants, the competitive research grants, what these institutions receive, from government there, and from the federal government particularly. And then when they receive the competitive research grants, up to 50%, 50 to 60% of the grant money goes as overhead to the university. The university directly gets funded through the research grants up to about 50% of it. And that it also sustains excellence in the US. So in US, there is nothing like if you are private, you are self-sustaining. That is never the case. In US, even if you are private, you receive a lot of indirect support, from the government there. In India, if you are private, you get nothing, right? You have to entirely survive based on the tuition fee. And now the tuition fee you cannot increase in a country where the per capita income is, in 2 lakhs kind of a rupees. How much of tuition fee can you charge, from the students? If you want to retain merit, like what BITS Pilani does, then it's going to be a problem to keep on increasing the tuition fee. I think leaving private institutions to survive only on the tuition fee is never going to allow private institutions to, come up like what has happened in the US. So I think these financial models need to be completely relooked at in India. The public funded institutions are dependent on government up to 90%. 90% of revenues in an IIT come from a government source, either through sponsored grants or from grants and other things, right? In private universities, the 90% of revenues come from the tuition fee. Both these are flawed models. Right? With both these models, you can never build a Berkeley in the public sector or a Stanford in the private sector. It will never happen, right? I think the way to do that is by diversifying your financial resources. If you look at Stanford tuition fee contribution to their revenue is less than 20%. Less than 20% of Stanford revenues come from tuition fee because they have this endowment fund. They get huge overheads from government grants. That is what sustains excellence at a place like Stanford. And I think some of these financial models need to be relooked at in India, if at all, we want to build those Berkeleys and Stanfords. And I think, I have also been writing about it. I write, regularly as a column in Times of India. Many of my columns are also addressing some of these, fundamental issues concerning the higher education. And government is listening. I think slowly a few things they have been trying to address. But I think, a lot of reforms are needed. In fact, in one of the articles, I said what happened in 1991 as economic reforms, need to happen in the education sector too. I think we need 1991 sort of a reform now in the higher education. I think I hope and pray the government would, listen to some of these things and then, would implement some of these measures. Without doing that, You can neither build excellence in the public sector nor in the private sector. IITs are doing well. I spent 27 years in IITs. I have nothing wrong about them. But IITs are still not Stanfords. IITs are still not MITs. They are not even Xinhuas, right? They are not even Peking universities. Look at the Chinese universities where they have gone now. I think it's time we sit down and look at some of these models, how even in our neighboring countries, things have really taken shape when it comes to higher education. What India is lacking, what India needs to do, how can we build? It is not going to happen overnight. If you start now, China has sustained that level of funding for 20 years. Now they are reaping the benefits of that. If they are able to compete with US one on one, it's because of the strong, science and technology foundation they have built now. I think India needs to start somewhere now, at least, so that 20 years from now, we will also be able to say that we are now like China, or we are like the US kind of a thing. I think India has to start that journey somewhere. NEP is again a good way to start the national education policy. I think that's a good foundational kind of a document. But the implementation is where if given a chance, I would have done that very differently. The NEP in the true spirit of what NEP is about. I think that's what one needs to do. So I think India has a chance, and I hope 20 years from now we will build universities that the world will be proud of and wants to come and study. So.
Mhm. Yeah, got it, sir. Such an enlightening response. And moving ahead, 88% of Indian schools lack internet facilities, and about 70% of them lack computers. But today we are talking about AI-driven education. But can we really implement it when this basic infrastructure itself is missing?
I think India will figure it out eventually. Will do things, will use things, but it will never be a leading kind of a player in all of that. We are the leading consumers of all of these technologies. People will use it in some way or the other. IT, for example, right? How did we make use of IT? Now all the e-commerce companies you see are out of the same IT sector, right? We may have copied many things. We may not have. We are not the ones to build the first Zomatos, right? Somebody has done that, and we copied things, and so everywhere we are the great followers. I think that mindset is pretty strong in Indian psyche. So I think from being a great follower to how can you be a great leader, I think that transition will also call for a lot of self confidence, right? It's not going to happen overnight after 200 years of British rule, right? Foreign rulers and all of that. I think that whole entire mindset is to become like a follower. If somebody tells me what to do, I can do it very well, right? But I am not the one who will take a lead and do anything like that. I think that also requires our education system, to adapt to the changing kind of circumstances now. The NEP again talks about, I think, all the reforms that NEP talks about in making this happen is a good step in the direction. But I think it also we need a lot of investments towards that. The teacher training processes, the recruitment of teachers, getting the best people to come and teach in our universities, removing the bureaucracy that exists in managing our universities and even schools. I think these are the things that we need to do. We need to make teacher the most sought after kind of a person in the society. I think that will happen when we treat our teachers well, right? When we pay them very well, right? I think in India, teaching profession is not the highest paying position right now, and everything is pegged to some bureaucrat salary somewhere. And as a result, whether you are a great teacher or whether you want to do that, these are not the first options for people. These are often if I wanted to become that, I could not, so therefore I have taken up this profession kind of a feeling. So I think with that kind of a treatment for teachers, right? I think what is required to attract the brightest. India will never build a great education system. I think we need to, decouple the teaching profession at the primary school level or at the higher education level from all other professions. They need to be treated as stars. They need to be treated very differently from how you treat anyone else. And that will attract, once you start attracting the top brains, right, into this profession, I think they will train the next generation of learners and all of that. And today, ask any IIT undergrad, right? How many of them would want to become professors? How many of them would want to go to the teaching profession? That number is not very high because the salaries are low, right? They don't even want to do PhD. How many IIT undergrads or BITS undergrads are even doing a PhD, right? Less than 5%. The reason is that stipends are very low, and because stipends are very low, since they get much higher paying jobs outside, they tend to choose that as a profession. So we lose out a lot of great talent, because of the salary differences that exist, in the teaching professions and other professions. I think which we need to address at some point in time.
Yeah. In fact, I resonate with you. I started my career as a lecturer, as a faculty in an engineering college, and I worked there for about 3 years. And one of the main reasons I've quit is just because corporate jobs are lucrative, and also likewise there are many people. And in fact, I'm still passionate, and I'm now associated with BITS as a guest faculty. And if I use every opportunity to share my knowledge and all, but yeah, you have hit the right cards, right? And moving ahead, like talking about the semiconductor industry, right? We have so much of talent here, but still India is not a superpower in that space, right? So why is it so?
When IC, the integrated circuit, which is the acronym being IC people say is Indians and Chinese. I think these are the people who are running Indians design and Chinese manufacture. When I say Chinese, of course, I include the Taiwan, which is the major manufacturing nation, the same origin. So I think that is what IC is, and the reason why India could not do that, could not be a major player in design. We are a major player. I think every fifth designer is from India, so that is well done. But in manufacturing, in innovation, even developing new products, right, using these technologies, no, we are nowhere, right? We are not really doing very well. The India Semiconductor Mission has done very well as a starting point. In fact, this is the third time when we got lucky. I mean, the previous two times did not happen. We all, announced, publicized, and did everything, but no industry came and set up manufacturing. I think the credit should go to this government that they have been able to get at least 10 companies, right, in different sectors to come and start doing manufacturing in the country, which is a good beginning, right? As a beginning, it's very good. But if we, only manufacture in India what they are doing elsewhere, it's not going to take us anywhere, right? I mean, we will do manufacturing, and manufacturing is never the highest value generator for any company. So they will always look for places where there are great subsidies available, right, and great large number of people available, so that they can easily run these services and all of that. But that's not going to make India, a product nation, and that's not going to change anything on the ground. I think I have recently written an article about that. I think India needs to, invest in higher education. In when it comes to semiconductors, we need to also invest in research, right? We need to identify certain areas. For example, IoT, the Internet of Things, right? You have a sensor, and then you have an entire platform around that with which you can now measure, monitor, control, all of that you can do, right? Let's say take one area like IoT, right? India needs to have the vision to become a superpower, right? A world's leading nation for the sensors. So we need to create multiple sensor hubs in the country and create a lot of talent in the academia, so that a large number of people are working in sensors and sensor platforms, and then build the entire electronics around that, using the ecosystem that we create. And then you manufacture some of these sensors, locally, right? And then using some of these plants, and then sell for the entire world, right? That has to be the vision, right? In any niche area that you identify, we need to, do innovation. We need to develop new products. We need to encourage a lot of deep tech companies to come up in that niche area, which utilizes all the ecosystem that is coming up for manufacturing, so that you can eventually become a leading player in that subset kind of a thing. And IoT is one area where, even for AI and everything, you need information, right? Where does that information come from? The information will come from these sensors only. So the IoT market, they say, will be $1 trillion by 2035, right? I think for India to get into identify such niche areas and then develop technologies, develop the ecosystem in our academic institutions, in our manufacturing sector, and then put all of that together to invent for the world, right? I think those sort of things is what India needs to do now. While we have been able to get some of these top players to come and do some manufacturing in India, but if they are manufacturing what they are doing elsewhere, right, and with no input coming from our side, they will do until they are getting those subsidies. The moment you remove the subsidies, they will wind up everything and go away. So the right that is the worry that we'll always have. But what India needs to do is identify three or four niche areas where the future is going to be future is going to provide some big markets, and then invest into that area and then become a world's leading player in that. For example, if you look at automotive sector, the great things have happened now. So India is now one of the major players in the automotive components, right? And India exports a lot of components and all of that. But we haven't designed the first Tesla, right? We haven't designed anything which is unique in the world when it comes to automotive sector. It provides jobs. We are becoming exporters, getting some revenues, getting some foreign exchange, which is okay. But despite 30 years of being in the automotive sector, starting with that Maruti Suzuki, which laid the foundation for the automotive revolution, right? We haven't really been a great innovators in that area, right? All the great products are coming from outside, and we tend to manufacture them locally. I think semiconductor industry can do different things from the automotive industry, because what did we not do in automotive industry? Exactly the same thing. We never took the academia into account. Everything was about setting up manufacturing plants, and even after 30 years, you are just manufacturing things somebody tells you to do. But we haven't invented anything in terms of those sectors. So if we do the semiconductor in the semiconductor space, we do similar things. Whatever has happened for automotive sector will happen for semiconductor sector. But we wouldn't have been considered a great innovators, developing new products and all of that. I think we should learn from that experience. We need to bring in academia, and we need to create that ecosystem for deep tech startups. There is a lot of talent in academia. I think with time we utilize it for some national kind of a good. So
Right, got it. And when it comes to students nowadays, they are super confused. Like, should they choose core engineering jobs or pivot to AI, data science, and tech roles, right? So, what's your advice to them?
students will choose where there are jobs, because as I mentioned, they are all looking at pay packages, a job which will get them higher salary. I think their vision is all limited to finding that first day job kind of a thing, right? I think they are only going by what sells, and the IT skills get them higher salaries. So therefore they all want to do computer science, or do something like that. That's also because we haven't been able to create any innovation in other sectors, right? Civil engineering, or mechanical engineering, or any of these sectors you see, since we haven't really contributed to developing any new processes, new technologies, new innovations in those sectors, right? Those sectors are doing very routine manufacturing, even pharmacy. India is the pharmacy of the world, but our pharmaceutical companies, pay one of the lowest salaries, for employees, right? If a no IIT student, no bid student would join a pharmaceutical company, simply because the salaries are much low compared to any semiconductor company for that matter, right? And why has it happened? Because pharmaceutical technology is also all whatever people who are doing elsewhere, India does the same thing, right? On a higher level. These are all the generics and those kind of things, but we are not doing research to come up with new drugs, right? How many drugs have been developed out of India which have got FDA approval? You can count on your, maybe, I think the entire CSIR system has done one or two kind of a thing, and otherwise, there are no Indian drugs, right, which have got FDA approval. The new drugs coming out of India and all of that. The same problem, right? Whether it's automotive sector or pharmaceutical engineering, and if we don't do things differently, even the semiconductor sector will go the same way. So in the core sectors, the innovation has not happened. As a result, the routine manufacturing will never satisfy the needs of a graduate coming out of IITs, when it comes to the challenge that the job would provide, or even the salaries, that they would demand. And as a result, whatever innovation has happened in the IT sector. Thanks to all the companies we have, the startups that we have, IT we have. If you look at all our unicorns, right, 120 unicorns India has, right, all of them are around the IT sector only, whether it is fintech, whether it is e-commerce, whether it is any of those companies. So IT sector, we have been able to do that very effectively. The e-commerce and other kind of platforms we have been able to build, the UPI platform we have been able to build. I think, so that is therefore is with paying good salaries. So therefore, students would want to choose that area. And the same level of innovation has not happened in any core sector. Out of the 120 unicorns, less than 5% of them are based on an intellectual property, right? I mean, there's no intellectual property there. It's basically, replicating a business model, right, which works, which scales up, and which provides you those high-paying kind of jobs. So, which requires a lot of IT services, whether it is e-commerce or fintech or any of those sectors. So, therefore, students tend to choose those professions as a career option kind of a thing. And but the same innovation happening in, let's say, civil engineering, right? There's so much that can be done there. The 3D, printing, the kind of technologies for civil, finding alternative materials, for civil engineering. And our construction still is done exactly how it was done 50 years ago. What has changed in the construction now? It still takes 2 years to construct a building, right? Whereas, in China, they are building them in 24 hours, 48 hours. They are setting records on how fast and how soon can you construct a building. In India, nobody is working in any of those sort of technologies right now. The mechanical engineering, the industry 4.0, industry 5.0 that everybody is talking about, I think, who is working on those kind of technologies, we're developing them. So I think, in the core sectors, the innovation has not happened. As a result, they are all stuck with the low value manufacturing. And because they are all low value manufacturing with low margins, they cannot afford these high quality graduates. And that's a problem why everybody wants to do IT, CSC kind of a thing.
Yeah, got it. And you have co-founded two deep tech startups, NanoSniff and SoilSense. But in general, we don't see much of professors or students take the entrepreneurial route. So why is it happening? Like,
Yeah, my first company, NanoSniff, we launched it in 2011 at IIT Bombay. That company, worked very successfully on a technology. The proof of concept we showed in IIT Bombay as part of our research. Then the company took it over, right, and then they built the products out of that. I think the credit goes to them. In fact, they were all many of them got one of them is a PhD student who is the CTO of the company, my PhD student. And then, so the entire group got formed, and now they have their products in the airports. In fact, very soon, every second airport in the country will use the explosive detectors, developed from our research, developed from the NanoSniff company, right? And so now they have got big orders, and they are able to compete with the world's leading players, and win all the bids, right? But that has taken full 10 years. We started the company in 2011. We launched the product in 2021. But it takes that long, to develop something unique. It's a world's first micro sensor based explosive detector. World's first. We have all the worldwide patents for all of that. And converting that IP into a product, which everybody is using now in the airports, took us full 10 years. And so that's what happens in the deep tech space. My second company came in 2018, right, 2018, which was Nano Soil Sense. And Soil Sense is a company, which is now selling soil sensors for farmers in the country. They've also done very well. They have their manufacturing happening in Pune. One of my previous PhD students is now heading that company as the CEO. So that company is also doing very well. But there we were able to launch the product in about 5 years' time, because we learned, from NanoSniff, that experience definitely helped us when it came to soil sense. And both these are now deep tech startups. Both are doing very well. and they have been able to scale up their operations, earning enough revenues, to sustain, to grow, to scale, and all of that. But these are all long journeys, and now I see that more and more people are doing that. Even in BITS Pilani, we have uh, we have launched a very attractive entrepreneurship policy for faculty members. And now, since we announced that, there are 25 faculty startups now in BITS Pilani. Otherwise, the student startups BITS has always done very well. Alumni startups BITS has done very well. But now we are focusing more and more on the faculty startups, and also PhD students becoming entrepreneurs. At IIT Delhi, I started a program for faculty startups. We called it FIRE, Faculty Innovation and Research Driven Entrepreneurship. We used to provide funding for faculty, to start enterprises. The same thing we started doing in BITS, and now we are turning more and more PhD students into startup founders. We launched a new PhD program where at the end of 4 years or 5 years, your goal is to start a company, right? While you would have published some papers, may have filed some patents, right? Patents you would definitely have filed a few patents and then a prototype, and then take it forward as a startup. So we are now trying to convert more and more PhD thesis into startup ideas, right? That's what we are doing, and that we are doing from day one. When a PhD student joins, what courses the student takes, what project the student works on, who are the mentors for the student, all of that from day one will happen in such a way that at the end of 4 years, can you launch a company. That we have about 25 students now working in that mode. It's called PhD Drive, DRIVE. We pay them 50% higher stipends as compared to regular PhD students in the country to attract talent. And so I would like to encourage more and more deep tech startups. India needs more product startups, right? Now, if you look at US, all the trillion-dollar companies are in the US. The only trillion-dollar valued company outside US is the Saudi Arabia oil company. Other than that, all trillion-dollar companies have come out of US. All of them are product companies. These are all they have thought about a new product, and then now they are whether you take Nvidia or Microsoft or Google, all of them, right? Or they have a new idea, they have an IP, using which they have actually built those companies, and they don't even do any manufacturing. Nvidia manufacturing happens in TSMC, and Apple manufacturing happens in Foxconn in Taiwan and all of that. But these product companies are the ones which have created a lot of wealth in the US. And in India, we need more and more product startups. And the products, when I say product, it need not be a physical product. It's a Microsoft Office is a product, right? I think so. We need more product companies, to take India to that Viksit Bharat kind of a thing, as Honorable Prime Minister talks about, right? I think for India to become a developed country, the contribution has to be from these new age startups, which are more like the product startups.
You're right. And shifting gears, talking about the students again. So, what is the biggest mistake these engineering students are making when planning their careers? So, one thing that you mentioned earlier is they are more of job focused, right? Other than that, is there anything else?
I think they need to have a long-term view. There are many students who come to our campuses who don't need to take up a job, at the age of 21, right? They don't need to do that because they come from well-to-do families. They don't have any such major responsibilities that I have to start earning money kind of a thing. But even those students who don't have any such obligations to earn money at 21 years of age still want a job, right? They are not looking at pursuing careers. They are not looking at doing a PhD. If you don't want to do a PhD in India, it's okay, but you must go to the best place in the world, right? In that particular area, you should be counted among the top persons in that field, and use that knowledge, right? If today, for example, if I want to do a startup in a quantum computing, right? In any quantum cryptography or quantum sensors, right? At the BTech level, you would not have the background to do a startup in quantum area. That will require acquiring skills which are much deeper and much more advanced. And that will happen, unless you do a PhD, you would really not know enough about some of these advanced kind of areas. And since our students are not pursuing those higher studies, becoming experts in any one area, right? Most of the startups come out of the BTechs, right? The bachelor's level students, and these are all business model innovations, right? They are not any technology innovations. Technology innovations cannot come out of a BTech graduate. They can only come out of a PhD, somebody who has a very deep knowledge of some area. It need not be that you have to acquire that knowledge only by doing a PhD. You might even acquire that knowledge by working in an industry which is developing such technologies. So through practice, also you can learn some of that knowledge. And but that has to be the focus. As they say, to be called an expert of anything, you need 10,000 hours of hard work. And 10,000 hours of hard work is typically what a PhD is, what you learn or how much work you put in as a PhD. I would like to see some of our top students, right, not stopping at the BTech level, acquiring higher levels of knowledge, and then do entrepreneurship in these areas, which are more deep technologies like quantum technology, nanotechnology, cognitive technologies. All of them will require much higher levels of skill, than what they acquire at the BTech level. BTech is a very first degree, and everybody is starting their careers with BTech, and then they do some MBA, right? That is not going to teach them anything on the technology front, right? These are all business administration kind of programs, and I think that is a problem that we are seeing right now. I would like to see our top talent pursue science, learn things at the highest level, and then venture into doing startups, entrepreneurship, whatever they want to do after that. But they have to first become experts at something, spend that 10,000 hours of work required to be called an expert at the global scale.
Right, right, got it. But on the contrary, if you look at it, if you look at the society, people are fancied about dropping out from college and starting their own ventures and all. And that brings to my next question in terms of degree versus skill, right? So again, we hear this debate everywhere. But doesn't a degree from IIT or BIT still open more doors than any skill or certification?
It does open more doors. It also provides you the network, right? The reason why you go to a university is not necessarily for the degree purpose. You also develop a social circle, a network, which will eventually help you in many different ways. I think that is what a university does today. And you want to go to a great place because everybody in the class will also do great things, and you are also part of them. So all those networks will help kind of thing. If you look at all the unicorn founders, they all have formed those groups out of their colleges. All the co-founders are from that class or among the friend circle kind of thing. I think that is what a university does. But if your goal is to only do a business model kind of an innovation, right, not a deep technology, then those networks will definitely help you at the undergraduate level. But to go anything beyond for a deep tech kind of a thing, sometimes it can be a very solo journey, right? I mean, if you are the world's leading expert in quantum, right, you will only look for people who are also at that level to start the next big thing in the quantum area. And I think that is all what is currently required. So while skills are needed, right, and most of the skills that one acquires at the undergraduate level are the social skills, right? I mean, which are needed to form a group and how to lead teams and how to build that business model. So those are the things which you can get, those kind of social skills to start a company you might acquire at the undergraduate level. But when I am talking about skills, I am talking of product companies, I am talking of quantum, I am talking of nano, I am talking of LLMs, I am talking of agentic AI. Those kind of skill sets, you have to go to the best places to acquire them. And that you cannot do by dropping out of some school and then learning something. There may be a Bill Gates once in a while. There could be a Mark Zuckerberg another millennium. But I think just copying those kind of people, they are all considered to be those gifted kind of people. Ramanujam, right? Ramanujam did not have any great education, but he could do all of that. I mean, if every mathematician thinks I am Ramanujam and I don't have to go to school and I can also learn everything in temple, it's not going to work. So I think we must, whenever we generalize things, we should treat all of them as outliers. A Mark Zuckerberg, a Bill Gates, or Ramanujam kind of people are not, they don't fall on any straight line or any curve. right? They are all outliers. So I think you looking at them, 100 people trying to do a similar thing, but then not making any career out of anything. I think, one needs to be careful about that.
Right. And India produces like millions of engineers annually, but only a fraction are employable. Like that brings me to the curious question: is it a curriculum problem, teaching problem, or a student problem?
It's a combination of everything, right? I mean, to India, if you go to US, right? US, you have Stanfords, MITs, those top tier kind of universities, and you go to second tier, right? There are many second tier universities which are as good, right? If you go to any of these second tier universities, it doesn't mean that your undergraduate education will be any less effective, any less useful, right? They also offer education on par with the top universities. The MITs and Stanfords are what they are for the research activity, right? Once you go to graduate school, once you go to PhD, the nature of problem an MIT professor is working or a professor in a tier 2 university is working will be very different. An MIT professor is looking at 20 years down the line what will be the next generation of technology, and is already working on those 10 years down the line kind of a thing. A second tier university professor is more connected with university, with the industry, society, looking at 5 years, 10 years down the line. So most of the times the difference is at the graduate level, at the PhD level, at the research level, the difference between tier 1 and tier 2. At undergraduate level, they all offer great education, right? You go to a tier 2 university or go to this tier 1, you would not even know, how what's the difference between them kind of a thing. In India, it's not the case, unfortunately. We have tier 1, and then your tier 2 are so low, so below the tier 1. That there are no faculty, there are no proper laboratories, and there is no culture of learning. I think that huge gap between tier 1 and tier 2 in India is the reason for worry. And then 98%, 99% students go to these tier 2 colleges, and tier 1 is only producing 1% of them, right? So that gap is what makes it very worrisome, and that gap is very apparent when we talk about these employability and all of these kind of aspects now. So I think the solution for that is our top institutions, our tier 2 institutions need to collaborate more, right? Our tier 1 institutions also need to expand their base. They cannot remain so small. So that expansion also has to happen. But again, it comes down to investments, right? I mean, if you want to double the intake in IITs or BITS Pilani, you will need huge amounts of resources. Now, where is that money going to come from? For public funded universities, the government needs to invest in expanding that intake. And for private universities, you need a business model, you need philanthropy, you need somebody to put in that money to expand the base. And I think that is a challenge India is facing right now. In the absence of a financial model, expansion becomes very difficult. Expansion is entirely at the mercy of some other person. In the public funded universities, the government needs to give you money. In the private universities, you have to generate those kind of resources, which is all of them are becoming a problem. So our good institutions haven't scaled up, right? And then you have mushrooming of so many bad institutions in the country, and catering to a very large cross section of students, giving this impression that the employability is a problem right now. So I think, which is indeed a problem. I think we need to see how to bring up these colleges to the same level as some of the good institutions that we have been able to create in the country. And the collaboration is the key. Investments need to be the way out of all of this problem.
Got it. And that brings to my next one in terms of R&D spend, right? India spends less than 0.7% of GDP, and which is among the lowest. And even the Indian industry spends about 0.2% of GDP on the R&D. So how can we create a research-driven ecosystem when funding is so limited?
I think government needs to spend money. There are no two ways about it. I think government needs to take a call that in the next 3 years we will take it from 0.68% or whatever it is to 2%. I think there are no justification, no explanation will work there unless you invest money. I think the results are not going to be visible. And but of course, when government wants to do that, they also say that, but the absorbing capacity of these universities is also very low, right? And that is also a problem because our scientist base is pretty small. India has just about 270, 280 scientists per million population. For a million population, we have like 280 scientists right now. China has 2,000 scientists per million population. US has close to 5,000 scientists per million population. So our scientist base is very small because our institutions haven't scaled up. So I think the first thing where we need to invest money is to expand our institutional base. We don't need more institutions, right? Look at some of our finest institutions like Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research in Bangalore. I happen to be the chairman of chairman of the board of the JNCASR, the finest institution in the country when it comes to scientific research, right? But it has remained so tiny. That institute should have 5 times more faculty than what they have today. 5 times more faculty. But then they don't have sanctioned positions, and somebody in DOPT doesn't approve the new positions and all kinds of bureaucratic things. Look at any DST funded institution in the country today, all very tiny. SN Bose Center, many of these centers are all finest scientists, but they are all like 30 faculty or 40 faculty now. So with 30 faculty, 40 faculty, you cannot become globally famous. You cannot expect great things to come out of it. So that is a problem. Our good institutions haven't scaled up. IITs, for example, just have 600 faculty, 700 faculty, right? I mean, why should not they have twice the number of faculty? The reason is they don't have resources. There are no office spaces. There are no labs. There are no facilities. The campuses are all saturated. I think they need to build new campuses, but that will require money, right? I think we need to invest money in expanding our tier one institutions into something which are at least twice the current size. That's the first thing that we need to do, which is a low hanging fruit, and that is where our investments need to go. So no one should say that the absorbing capacity is low. Absorbing capacity is low because we have such tiny fraction of people who are scientists in this country. How much money can you give to these same people, even if you triple your research spending? It's not going to work. I think there are, on the other hand, we are producing so many top class PhDs now. In BITS Pilani, every time we advertise for faculty positions in any, we advertise twice. Each cycle we receive 10,000 PhDs applying for jobs, which are like 60 to 100 jobs we have in a year, right? That is a kind of a number, and because all our good institutions are producing so many high quality PhDs, they have nowhere to go. I mean, their faculty positions are so few, and since industry is not investing in R&D, right, industry is not recruiting enough PhDs, right? Where will these people go? Now we have produced such high quality PhDs, and there are neither faculty jobs nor industry jobs. I think the reason is because of our low investments. What government has done in RDI, the research and development initiative, that fund investments they are making, 1 lakh crore thing, is very good. I hope industries take up that money and initiate research activities, recruit many of these PhDs. And on the other hand, government needs to invest in scaling up our good institutions so that they can also grow at least 4x, 2x to 4x from what they are today. And that is when you see that the real results coming out, and some of them doing so well that there will be new technologies and all of that. I think otherwise in any area you take, you can count on your fingers how many people are doing great work in this country, world class kind of a work. I think with such a tiny scientist base, you will never really do any great things. And even in the US, for example, only about 10% of PhDs go to academic jobs. Remaining 90% of them find jobs in the industry, because industry there is investing in research. They need all these PhDs to come and do that great product innovation for them. Whereas in India, the only base is the faculty thing, right? And because there are no jobs in the industry for PhDs on a larger scale, which is the big challenge right now. So I think all of these things need to happen. India, our academic institutions need to grow 2x to 4x in the next 5 to 10 years, and our industry needs to invest more in R&D. When that happens, then you start seeing that we develop the absorption capacity. When the government wants to increase the funding to 2%, 2.5% of GDP, and then you see a lot of wonderful things happening. I think India needs to start that process at some point.
And you are chairman of multiple national committees on education and innovation. And in case if you have given full power, what is one policy change that you would implement immediately?
I think there are good working models. If you look at US, right? I mean, so when I often say that if you want to build a great education system, look at the US, right? So US universities have done very well, but certain things they have overdone it. For example, the tuition fee. A US university today, like a top university would charge anywhere from $50,000 per year to $100,000 per year. That is where the tuition fee currently lies, and so it is costing them almost like $400,000 to get an undergraduate degree there, right? And that is beyond the reach for many people because the return on investment has become pretty low. You pay $400,000 to get a degree, and you start with a $60,000 or $70,000 per annum kind of salary, right? It's a very poor investment. BITS Pilani offers so much higher return on investment compared to any of these schools in the US. So I think that is where hybrid model. Australia. Look at Australia. Australia doesn't have Stanford level of institutions, but they have a great funding model for university called HELP, Higher Education Loan Program. Which is a very interesting program Australia does, where students are not burdened with the loans and other things. I think what India needs is study the best models, Europe, Australia, and US kind of a thing, and then come up with something that suits us, right? The first thing I would think we need to do is completely redo our university system. Unless you build that great science, and because the future is being made in these universities. If you want to see what is India's future, you just come to an academic institute and see what is today, because this will be your future tomorrow, because all the future is all being made in these institutions. If at all you need to start to reform, it has to start at the university level. And there are no one single model will help us. No US model, no Australia model, no European model. It has to be a combination of all of these three, right? And there are ways to do that. At least I have great clarity in my mind, and I have been writing about it too. And I think that is where we need to start. We need to start with our university system. And once you start producing very high quality, very high caliber people out of these places, they will build that Vikasit Bharat. They will do everything else that the country needs to see.
Right, got it. And I'm sure this question must be there on many people's minds. So by 2030, which engineering disciplines will become obsolete and which one would explode in demand?
I think computer science will definitely grow now with this AI, kind of a thing becoming popular, right? The LLMs, semiconductors is another area which is fast picking up in the country. If you look at the job opportunities this year compared to last year, one major difference is in the semiconductor areas. And fintech is another sector which is growing pretty fast, right? I think we need to also offer newer programs now, and AI kind of areas must be taught for all graduates. AI is a like a platform, like you use computers, you will use AI. Whether you are a computer scientist or a civil engineer, it doesn't really matter, right? Everybody will have to use these tools. So AI has to be the foundational thing for every discipline. On top of that, you of course as a civil engineer you will use it for specific purpose, and as a computer scientist you might use it for a specific purpose. I think if we can integrate AI into all disciplines, right, there will be lot of future growth prospects. In BITS Pilani, for example, to 2026, we are offering a program on AI and smart systems. India, for example, the humanoids, right, the robots, India hasn't gotten into that in a big way. We are still talking of AI, but one of the major applications of AI will be in the humanoids, right? And that sector, we are now starting a program next year, which is combining AI with the humanoids, the smart systems, as I call it. I think that is one program. Environmental sciences and engineering will also be very critical, because looking at the way the global warming and all of that is happening, the ESG compliances, Of course, US has gone in the other direction now, but it's all temporary kind of a phenomenon. Nobody can reverse the direction when it comes to global warming. Eventually, we have to address that problem. The ESG compliances, right, will also require specialized kind of training, right? And also semiconductors. India will have a great prospects in the semiconductor area. That's also one sector. By 2030, you will see many of these sectors becoming very critical. When it comes to the jobs and other things.
And when we talk about the upcoming BITS Amaravati campus, it will be an AI driven digital hub, right? So, what in general does this AI driven campus actually mean in practice?
My vision for Amravati campus is all major programs will be around AI and computer science, right? That is what the major programs will be. But if you just teach students AI and computer science, if you don't expose them to applications, then they will not be of much use. So the way we are planning the Amravati campus is, of course, the major programs are related to AI, computer science kind of a thing. But then the application areas like agricultural engineering, there will be an agricultural school where you apply AI in agriculture. You apply AI in another school on climate science, right? You apply it on climate science. You apply it on industry 4.0. You apply it in different kinds of sectors where you learn these basic concepts about AI, all CS kind of areas, and you do two minors in two application areas. So every student will be more experiential kind of will go through an experiential learning kind of a program where you would have built the products, right? You would have built applications using the AI in at least two different areas. So every student will be industry ready in the sense they know all the fundamentals of these advanced areas, but they would also have applied and built something with their own hands by the time they graduate. So one major and two minors is what every student will do. The minors will be in application areas, while major will be in AI and AI plus kind of areas. So that is how we are modeling that campus. And of course, there will be strong PhD programs leading to startups, leading to them becoming entrepreneurs, and that's also another major effort that's going to happen in the Amaravati campus. So I think that's what we will be doing, and it will work very closely with industry, and that industry collaboration will be critical. And also we will have a lot of international partners for the schools that I am talking of in different application areas. We will collaborate with universities, good universities world over, to create those schools. So that's what the AI plus campus in Amravati is going to be.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to how it shapes up, and I'm sure it is going to change the face of the country and the world as well. So, Professor, this has been an incredible conversation with a lot of insights and personal learned a lot, not just about Indian education system, but across the globe. And it's time for us to add some more spice and excitement to the episode. So, if you're ready, let's kick off the second rapid fire round. Okay. My first bullet is, if you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
I think innovation, thinking out of the box. I would always believe doing things differently. So the I think think differently probably will be my billboard. So
Good one. And can you describe yourself in just one word?
very passionate in what I do. So
Yeah. And IIT or BITS, which produces better entrepreneurs?
to me, a combination of both. So I think probably both are good universities. So I have there are pros and cons in both the systems, but the perfect combination will be a combination of these two. So
Yeah. From the conversation I had so far, I am kind of, I know partial answer to the upcoming question, but still I'm going to ask you, PhD or MBA, what adds more value?
PhD any day.
Thought so. And startup or corporate job, what would you choose at 25?
I think it could be corporate job leading to a startup, right? So never the other way, startup to corporate. I'm not a great fan, but I think if you need to learn something, work in a corporate, not no harm in that. But keep your eyes and ears open, find right idea, come out and do your own startup.
Right. Best career advice in 3 words.
Passion, patience, and perseverance.
One book every engineering student must read.
Oh, there are many books. Depends on what one wants to do. For example, right now I'm reading this book on Symphony of Innovation, and so I think there are lots of books around, and there are also great podcasts these days for those who are not reading much. You can also listen to a lot of great thinkers and thought leaders, and I think but learning is key. I think we should constantly learn. So.
Yeah. NanoSniff or SoilSense, which startup is closer to your heart?
I mean, both are doing well, but I am more closely involved with NanoSniff than SoilSense. But both are now run by my former PhD students, and I both of them would not have happened without me. So I think I can claim that I started them. But all startups are like the relay race. You need to realize that we would have started it, but I could not have taken it to where they are today. Then different people joined, they took it forward, they took it forward, and finally we're at one stage. So I think these are all relay races. But I think I started the first, I was in that first leg of the relay. So can take some credit for that. But the credit goes to so many people in those companies. It's always a group effort, and but both are doing well, and I wish them all the best.
Right. And one thing you'd change about IIT JEE.
I IIT JEE, is a good exam. It actually has set standards for 11th and 12th standard maths, physics, chemistry. I have, uh, I think today, given all the challenges that are involved, looking at the number of students taking the exam, to get into IITs, no other exam would have served that purpose. At the end of the day, though I know many people talking about variety of ways to admit to conduct that exam, I know the challenges involved. I know what works, what doesn't work in this country. Nothing could have served better than a JEE advanced exam. So, would I change anything? I'm not sure what I would change. I mean, yeah. So
Okay. Yeah. And degree from tier one college or skills from online courses?
it will be a combination of both. I think we're all like students for life. You might go to a college, but then you will take, you will continue to take online courses to keep yourself abreast of, whatever is happening. So I think it has to be a combination of both. It cannot be only one over the other. So.
And what is your proudest moment as an educator?
In fact, my proudest moment was when I received the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, from the hands of Prime Minister of the country, my mother in the audience, my in-laws in the audience. I think that has always been my proudest moment. I mean, I was pretty young, I would say, and at that young age to be receiving such a prestigious award has definitely changed my life, and I think that is definitely my proudest moment.
Yeah, congratulations, and I am sure many more accolades are on your way.
Thank you so
And
much.
here comes the last one for the second rapid fire round. What is one electronic gadget or the fantasy gadget that you'd like to see or invent yourself?
I think I a mobile phone that also does diabetic monitoring, right? I mean, I wear a watch. The watch should do pretty much everything that I need to know about my body, right? From blood pressure to sugar levels to all other things, right? And I think my phone is that one source which does everything. It's coming close now, right? BP is still not something you can measure in a watch accurately, and ECG they do, but that also not at the level that one would need. And sugar diabetes monitoring, there is no non-invasive kind of a thing which is accurate. I mean, there are patches now which you can wear, the CGM, continuous glucose monitoring, but they are all expensive, for a regular kind of a use. I think more, body sensors, right, which are non-intrusive, right? You should be, tiny thing that you wear and it takes care of everything. And then your phone, continuously keeps monitoring all your vitals, and what what you are doing and how you are doing. And I think probably that will take another 10 years, but we are definitely on the way. I mean, I have been using phones till what 98 or so. They have come a long way. I hardly use laptops now. I only do all my work on mobile phones.
Mhm. No, that's a great startup idea as well. And after that amazing second rapid fire round, let's flip back to the mainstream. So, Professor, what is the one question students should ask themselves before choosing a career that they never do?
I think that long haul, right? Don't be look at it as a sprint kind of a thing. That you just finish it and take up a job. I think you need to look at the long term, have that long term vision. That think of it as a marathon, right? I mean, if you think of it as a long term thing, every discipline is interesting enough, right? Today, for example, which is a discipline which doesn't get you any job or people don't want to take, right? You look at that same profession, right, where you want to do bachelor's, master's, phd, and then you continue to innovate, right? Every discipline offers enough opportunities for innovation, enough opportunities for startups, enough opportunities for problem solving. I think with that mindset, if one approaches, every discipline is interesting. Look at civil engineering, right? I mean, the future of construction needs to be will be completely different. But who will develop it, right? It has to be a multidisciplinary kind of an approach where civil engineers working with material scientists, with other engineers, can build those platforms. So therefore, I think no discipline is bad if you are into it as a long haul kind of a thing.
Right. Got it. And I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. It is extremely insightful and one of the finest conversations I've ever had on the show. Thank you so much for joining me today. And how is your experience being hosted on TGV, the Guiding Voice podcast?
Thank you so much. I think I could. I also. I've not had any. I've not seen the questions before, so I think it was very. What do you call it? Informal and extempore kind of a thing, and I enjoyed talking to you. I think it was a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much once again, and looking forward to hosting you again in future. And I wish you all the best in everything that you do. Keep inspiring people like us, and yeah, keep up all the wonderful work. So thank you once again, and I would like to take a moment to thank Srikanth ND for really connecting us with Professor V. Ramgopal Rao. So thank you so much, Srikanth. It's I can't thank enough. Okay, so no words for me more than that, and. Yeah, so friends, that was our episode with Professor V. Ramgopal Rao. And before we jump into the fun trivia section, here is a quick request. If you have enjoyed the conversation and found it useful and insightful, request you to share with at least your three of your friends or colleagues or family members who would also like TGV, the guiding voice. So spread the knowledge and help others grow just like you. Now it's time for us to cruise into the trivia segment. So today I wanted to talk to you about the three educators from humble backgrounds who changed the world. Number one on the list is Srinivasa Ramanujan, who is a poor Indian mathematician born into poverty in Tamil Nadu. Ramanujan taught himself mathematics from a borrowed library book and rejected by universities twice. He lived in extreme poverty while sending mathematical formulas to British mathematicians. G.H. Hardy called Discovering Ramanujan his greatest contribution to mathematics. And Ramanujan died at 32 but produced thousands of elegant theorems. And over a century later, mathematicians are still discovering the depth of his work. His equations now connect fields he never studied: string theory, knot theory, and statistical mechanics. And his legacy is mathematics is still catching up to Ramanujan. Second on the list is Michael Faraday, bookbinder to electromagnetism pioneer. Again, he is also born in poverty. Faraday never attended university. At 14, he became a bookbinder's apprentice and taught himself science by reading the books passing through his hands. And at 21, he attended a lecture by chemist Humphrey Davy, took meticulous notes and sent them to him. And Davy hired him later, despite being treated as a servant during European travels. Faraday went on to discover electromagnetic induction in 1831 and the principle behind all modern power generations and electric motors. He became a fellow of the Royal Society and a university professor without ever receiving formal education. And his legacy is every electrical device in the world traces back to his discoveries. And the last one on the list is Maria Montessori, who is the woman. She's the women breaking gender barriers and born in 1870s in Italy. When women could not access higher education, Montessori faced systemic exclusion. She reapplied to medical school after initial rejection and became one of Italy's first female physicians in 1896. Working in psychiatric wards with the neglected children, she realized they needed sensory simulation, not punishment. And in 1907, she opened the first Casa dei Bambini, which is the children's house, revolutionizing education with her philosophy. Help me do it myself. Today, Montessori schools exist in 100 plus countries, influencing how millions of children learn worldwide. And her legacy is a woman barred from education created a global educational revolution. And if you observe the common thread, all three overcame poverty or systemic exclusion through relentless curiosity, self education, and perseverance through rejection, and created long lasting global impact that benefits humanity generations later. So, likewise, if you are inspired of any educator, do let me know about them. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, you can comment there, or if you found it on Spotify, you can comment there as well, or on any other social media platforms as well. So, folks, that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and also for being part of our awesome TGV family. So, until next time, take care, stay inspired, and remember the best is yet to come. Goodbye for now. See you all in the next episode with another amazing guest. Take care. Love you all. Bye bye.